when I moved away from religion and Christianity, I noticed that churches move around existing or pre-existing predators. When in every denomination of Christianity, there is a rampant, unchecked, and enforced, protected CSA and SA, you kind of get the idea that nobody really cares about the kids. It's all about protecting the institution of the church. Anything that could hint that the church isn't as perfect, put together, or as righteous as it claims to be must be squashed, ignored, and protected at all costs. Why is this damaging? Because every institution has its own vices, its own weaknesses, its own strengths. To protect an institution that is made up of human beings, simple human beings, nothing supernatural, and then protecting that image at the expense of your own parishioners is unbelievable, even though it's so believable. There have been thousands. We don't even know. We'll never know. We will never have even a clue of how many people have been harmed by just the Catholic Church. Throughout the century, any group, any institution, religious or secular, that had absolute power and people's absolute trust have abused it. The Catholic Church is no different. It doesn't matter what denomination you're in. There's going to be rampant CSA. And I always say, religion, specifically Christianity, has redefined what CSA is, what it's capable of doing, and how prevalent it is. I think the only place more rampant with CSA is in the home. Third is in school. There is unchecked absolute power in church. Catholicism has been around for over 1,000 years. Imagine how many kids have been exploited. How many people have been killed or harmed due to the Catholic Church wanting to maintain their influence and control. We know that when the Borgias and when the Medicis were Pope, they were known for debauchery and for every manner of awful behavior, murder included. I can't even fathom what really happened in just the Catholic Church. When on average, 1 out of 33 cis heterosexual men are probably a predator. You can't even imagine how many there are in just one church. If a church has 1 out of 2 people is a man. So for every 10 people, 4 of them are male, 5 are women, and 1's a kid. And I'm going to be generous here. I think there's 45 men for every 100 people. That means every 100, there is 1.5 predators. That's a lot of predators. And they're experts in preying because they're victims. Their victims' families, their victims' community looks up to this predator as if they are God. And the church does it on purpose. They make everyone believe that pastors are infallible, they should not be fact-checked, that they are God's anointed. And then they shame you when the pastor falls for having that faith in him to begin with, when religion and that denomination and church set that dynamic up in the first place. Why do Christian denominations have a problem with CSA? Like, what's going on there? Why do people continuously protect predators? Why do they move them around? Why do they not call the police and do what Jesus told them to do in the very beginning? To love thy neighbor, to protect your neighbor, to be a decent human being and care about those. It's everyone's responsibility to make sure that every child, every woman, every widow is protected, fed, cared for. That is the church's job. And anything less, you are a monster. To protect and allow these people to continuously harm kids. The doctrine your church teaches makes it so easy for these predators to prey. And this environment sets up the victims to rarely to never report it in the decade it happens, because of the extreme versions of faith and trust and influence these leaders have. We can't comprehend how often, how many times kids have been harmed. But the church are like men. They always protect themselves or another bro. That's just how it is. Women, they protect everybody. Men just protect themselves and their own gender. That's just the way it is. It should be different, but it's not going to change. Church is a male-centered, male-controlled, and male-started institution. It benefits men just like marriage benefits men. And unless men are the majority of victims, nothing's going to change. And I'm not advocating that men start becoming victims. Definitely not. But if it's not something that 95% of the time men don't have to deal with, they're not going to make it a priority. The church makes light of victims. They support a rapist, also known as Donald Trump. The church has no qualms and no second thoughts when it comes to protecting an awful, awful predator. Everyone in Trump's administration is a predator. And when you support a rapist, you can't legitimately, with integrity, say, what about the kids? Because you don't care about the kids. And anyone who supports anyone who has been found in court liable for SA and was friends with a awful predator, you've told me everything I need to know about you, and I wouldn't let you near my kids or my nieces or nephews. The church loves to protect predators. The whole system, the whole religion protects the privileged male. Because 95% of the time, it's a privileged male, usually white, who harms kids. And yet the church will blatantly say it's a trans person or a gay person that attacks kids. But why would the church care about sexual assault? They haven't consistently, or anywhere near consistently, protected kids or vulnerable women ever. I mean, the symbol of their religion records over a dozen sexual assaults and child deaths. Their God doesn't care anything about innocent kids. And if a child gets hurt because they stonewall, gaslight, and threaten and refuse to call the police to protect kids, you can call yourself a church all the time. I'm calling you an enabler. And I grew up in the Baptist church. There is no other Protestant denomination with higher stats for CSA than the Baptist church. United Methodist is number 2. Catholic will always be number 1 if you count all types of denominations. But Assemblies of God lately have been shown to not care anything about vulnerable people. And you can preach God's love all you want, but if you won't help the least of these, you're part of the problem.